I was careful to concede that religious people don't think in a biblical way anymore. For me, this demonstrated that our morals, whether we are religious or not, come from another source, and that other source, whatever it is available to all of us, regardless of religion or lack of it. But Hartung tells of a horrifying study by the Israeli psychologist George Tamarin. Tamarin presented to more than 1,000 Israeli schoolchildren aged between 8 and 14 the account of the Battle of Jericho in the book of Joshua.
Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. But all silver and gold, and vessels of bronze and iron, are sacred to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord." Then they utterly destroyed all in the city, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep and asses, with the edge of the sword. And they burned the city with fire, and all within it. Only the silver and gold, and the vessels of bronze and of iron, they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord.
Tamarin then asked the children a simple moral question. Do you think Joshua and the Israelites acted rightly or not? They had to choose between A, total approval, B, partial approval, and C, total disapproval. The results were polarized. 66% gave total approval and 26% total disapproval, with rather fewer, 8%, in the middle with partial approval. Here are 3 typical answers from the total approval, A group.
In my opinion, Joshua and the sons of Israel acted well, and here are the reasons. God promised them this land and gave them permission to conquer. If they would not have acted in this manner or killed anyone, then there would be the danger that the sons of Israel would have assimilated among the Goyim. In my opinion, Joshua was right when he did it, one reason being that God commanded him to exterminate the people so that the tribes of Israel will not be able to assimilate amongst them and learn their bad ways. Joshua did good because the people who inhabited the land were of a different religion, and when Joshua killed them, he wiped their religion from the earth.
The justification for the genocidal massacre by Joshua is religious in every case. Even those in category C who gave total disapproval did so in some cases for backhanded religious reasons. One girl, for example, disapproved of Joshua's conquering Jericho because in order to do so, he had to enter it.
I think it is bad, since the Arabs are impure, and if one enters an impure land, one will also become impure and share their curse.
2 others who totally disapproved did so because Joshua destroyed everything, including animals and property, instead of keeping some as spoil for the Israelites.
I think Joshua did not act well, as they could have spared the animals for themselves. I think Joshua did not act well, as he could have left the property of Jericho. If he had not destroyed the property, it would have belonged to the Israelites.
Once again, the sage Maimonides, often cited for his scholarly wisdom, is in no doubt where he stands on this issue.
It is a positive commandment to destroy the 7 nations, as it is said, "Thou shalt utterly destroy them." If one does not put to death any of them that falls into one's power, one transgresses a negative commandment, as it is said, "Thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth."
Unlike Maimonides, the children in Tamarin's experiment were young enough to be innocent. Presumably the savage views they expressed were those of their parents or the cultural group in which they were brought up. It is, I suppose, not unlikely that Palestinian children brought up in the same war-torn country would offer equivalent opinions in the opposite direction. These considerations fill me with despair. They seem to show the immense power of religion, and especially the religious upbringing of children, to divide people and foster historic enmities and hereditary vendettas. I cannot help remarking that 2 out of Tamarin's 3 representative quotations from Group A mentioned the evils of assimilation, while the 3rd one stressed the importance of killing people in order to stamp out their religion.
Tamarin ran a fascinating control group in his experiment. A different group of 168 Israeli children were given the same text from the book of Joshua, but with Joshua's own name replaced by General Lin, and Israel replaced by a Chinese kingdom 3,000 years ago. Now the experiment gave opposite results. Only 7% approved of General Lin's behaviour and 75% disapproved. In other words, when their loyalty to Judaism was removed from the calculation, the majority of the children agreed with the moral judgments that most modern humans would share. Joshua's action was a deed of barbaric genocide. But it all looks different from a religious point of view, and the difference starts early in life. It was religion that made the difference between children condemning genocide and condoning it.
In the latter half of Hartung's paper, he moves on to the New Testament. To give a brief summary of his thesis, Jesus was a devotee of the same in-group morality, coupled with out-group hostility, that was taken for granted in the Old Testament. Jesus was a loyal Jew. It was Paul who invented the idea of taking the Jewish God to the Gentiles. Hartung puts it more bluntly than I dare.
Jesus would have turned over in his grave if he'd known that Paul would be taking his plan to the pigs.
Hartung has some good fun with the book of Revelation, which is certainly one of the weirdest books in the Bible. It is supposed to have been written by St. John, and as Ken's Guide to the Bible neatly put it, if his epistles can be seen as John on pot, then Revelation is John on acid. Hartung draws attention to the 2 verses in Revelation where the number of those sealed, which some sects, such as the Jehovah's Witnesses, interpret to mean saved, is limited to 144,000. Hartung's point is that they all had to be Jews, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. Ken Smith goes further, pointing out that the 144,000 elect did not defile themselves with women, which presumably means that none of them could be women. Well, that's the sort of thing we've come to expect. There's a lot more in Hartung's entertaining paper. I shall simply recommend it once more and summarize it in a quotation.
The Bible is a blueprint of in-group morality, complete with instructions for genocide, enslavement of outgroups, and world domination. But the Bible is not evil by virtue of its objectives or even its glorification of murder, cruelty, and rape. Many ancient works do that. The Iliad, the Icelandic sagas, the tales of the ancient Syrians, and the inscriptions of the ancient Mayans, for example. But no one is selling the Iliad as a foundation for morality. Therein lies the problem. The Bible is sold and bought as a guide to how people should live their lives, and it is by far the world's all-time bestseller.